So let's look at internal audits and inspections. So we are into session 14. So we've covered 13 sessions so far. So let's look at how do you conduct an internal audit, as well as how do you conduct inspections. So by the end of this session, you should be able to define what an audit is and what an inspection is. Then you should know the difference between an audit and an inspection. Then you should know the tools used for biosafety and biosecurity internal audits, as well as know the tools that you can use to perform an inspection. Then at least you should be able to conduct an internal audit or an inspection in your own facility. So let's look at some definitions. So I know the definitions look a bit mouthy, but it's for a purpose, because we want to define what an audit is and what an inspection is a little bit more in details. So what is an audit? So an audit is a systematic, independent and documented evaluation of an organization's biosafety and biosecurity policies, procedures, and practices. So mostly what you're looking at is an evaluation where you're looking at the biosafety and biosecurity policies and procedures and practices in your organization. So you're assessing the effectiveness, compliance, and adequacy of systems against established standards, regulations, and internal protocols. So audits, mainly what you're doing also is you are assessing how well you are complying with either international standards, local regulations, or international regulations, as well as some internal protocols or procedures that you may have. So you're looking at how well are you complying and how effective these type of compliance are in relation to what you want to achieve from complying to them. Then audits are typically comprehensive and aim to identify systematic issues and areas for improvement. So once you're doing an audit, you just want to see if the system is working the way it's supposed to work. And that way, if the system is not working the way it's supposed to work, you identify the areas of improvement through the audit, and then you make the necessary next steps to improve the overall system. So basically that's that on internal audit. So now let's look at an inspection. So what is an inspection? Okay, so what is an inspection? So an inspection is a routine, hands-on examination or observation of facilities, equipment, procedures, and personnel activities to ensure day-to-day compliance with biosafety and biosecurity requirements. Then inspections are often more frequent and focus on identifying immediate hazards or deviations from standard operating procedures. So for inspections, mostly you are looking at the day-to-day operations. So you're checking whether or not the day-to-day operations are in line with what you planned out to achieve during your starting of either your system or whatever implementation that you are doing. So in this way, you are mostly not checking the system in a whole. You are checking maybe parts of the system or random areas that may overall contribute to the system. But then in the audit, you are mostly checking the entire system at once and checking if the system is working the way it's supposed to work. Then another difference between an audit and an inspection is that mostly during an inspection, you want to look at or identify immediate hazards or deviations from either your SOPs or standards that you would have formulated at the facility. Whilst in an audit, mostly you're looking at mostly long-term type of hazards, and if you need to put up actions to correct those, you do most of the corrective action, and mostly what works to close up the gaps for an audit are corrective actions and not really the immediate action. So immediate actions can work for an inspection, but then mostly for an audit, you may want to do some form of detailed corrective action and preventive action if necessary. So there are two types of audits. There's what we call an internal audit and an external audit. So an internal audit, so internal audits, these are carried out by auditors within the institution, while the external audits are carried out by auditors from other institutions. So during an internal audit, you conduct the internal audit within your organization or within the laboratory. So it's the people that are actually working in that facility or that organization or laboratory that conducts the internal audit. But then for external audit, you may need to have external people coming in so that they look at your system from a different point of view or a different type of eye, and maybe sometimes they may even use some certain type of specific checklists that you may not use during the internal audit. And then for internal audit, mostly what we want to achieve is you just want to see if the system is working fine, then you identify some gaps and close the gaps so that you remain compliant with either the international standards or the national laws and regulations. But for external audits, mostly is to comply to certain international standards with the aim of you getting either certified by you complying to that standard, or you can get either accredited or any type of recognition that you may get after you score very high marks in that particular external audit. So let's look at some aspects that are different between an audit and an inspection. So let's look at the purpose. So the purpose of an audit is to comprehensively review a system or a process, and to also check compliance to the standards like we mentioned. But then for an inspection, the purpose is to visual and operational checks. So these are visual and operational checks of specific practices, equipment, or areas. So mostly you're just checking randomly some areas in relation to practice as well as equipment that are related to the day-to-day work that you're carrying out in the laboratory. For the scope, an audit is a bit broad, so it covers policies, documentation, training, risk management, or anything that may be contributing to your overall management system. But then an inspection is narrow. So mostly it focuses on day-to-day operations and physical conditions. So it will check the day-to-day operations in a random and not really a systematic manner. Then for the approach, the audit is a systematic and process-based, while an inspection is observational and task-based. Frequency, so audits are mostly periodic, so you can do them either annually or semi-annually or every quarter, depending on how often you want to do them. But then inspections are a little bit more frequent, so you can do inspections either on a daily basis, you can do inspections on a weekly basis, monthly basis at the most. Then conducted by, so mostly audits are conducted by trained auditors. So these auditors may either be trained in internal or external audit processes. Then for the inspection, mostly the supervisors for the organization or facility or lab or safety officers or lab personnel themselves can conduct an inspection. Then the focus for the audit, it focuses on the effectiveness of the overall biosafety and biosecurity program. And then for the inspection, it will focus mostly on the immediate hazards and compliance with the standard operating procedures, your plans as well as your policies, but then on a shorter scale, not really as compared to your audit. So what type of documentation is required for the audit? The documentation is in-depth reports with findings. You need to do your root cause analysis, and then you also need to do some form of recommendations and the like. But then for the inspections, all you need is sometimes is the checklist, and with some notes and corrective actions after you check whatever you're checking. Then if you want to take it a bit step further, you can also have some form of small reports after you do the inspections. So outcome. So for the audit, identifies systematic issues and areas of improvement. But then for the inspection, this one identifies specific hazards or non-conformities needing quick correction, not really something that will need longer type of corrective action. So what are some of the tools that you may use when you are using or when you are conducting either an internal audit or an external audit? So some tools that you may use when you want to do a biosafety and biosecurity internal audit or external audit, you may use the SLIPTA checklist, or the SLBP checklist, or the Zambia Biosafety and Biosecurity checklist. So we're going to look at these checklists a little bit more in detail in the 3 slides that will follow. So the SLIPTA checklist. So this is the checklist. So SLIPTA simply stands for SLIPTA stands for stepwise laboratory improvement projects towards accreditation. So it's a checklist that was created so that it prepares facilities for the accreditation process. So if you are scoring good scores or you have high stars in this particular checklist, it means that you are ready now to go into the accreditation type of external audit using either the SATCAS checklist or any type of checklist that may be used for either certification, accreditation, or anything else. So this checklist is a preparatory type of checklist, and you don't necessarily get accredited using this checklist. It's mostly a preparatory type of checklist. So we're talking about quality management system when you're using this checklist. But then under this checklist, so the checklist has 12 sections, but then one of the sections mostly focuses on biosafety, as well as the facilities that are contributing to you working in a safe environment. So section 12 is the facilities and biosafety section. So it has a total of 43 points that you can get. So that is the highest scoring section in all the checklist. So you can get starred. So if it uses a star type of grading, where if you score below 55%, you get no stars. If you get between 55 and 64%, you get 1 star. Then 65 to 74, you get 2 stars. Then between 75 and 84, that's 3 stars. Then between 85 and 94, you get 4 stars. Then above 95%, you get 5 stars. So ideally, what the stars mean is that as you get closer to the 5 stars, it means that you are getting closer to actually achieving everything that you may need to get accredited, either mostly using the ISO 15189 as well as the ISO 15190, which is the safety ISO. So let's look at another type of checklist. So this is the Zambia Biosafety and Biosecurity checklist. So I think we discussed this checklist should be in session 1. So, but ideally, this is a purely biosafety and biosecurity checklist. So if you look at the SLIPTA section for biosafety or the facilities and biosafety in the SLIPTA checklist, mostly it concentrates on the biosafety aspect. It doesn't really enter into the issues or preparing you for some security aspects that you may need for other types of certifications that may require you to be certified either in biosafety and biosecurity. Of course, maybe using the other type of standards that are certifiable, for example, the ISO 35001. So this checklist will prepare you more strongly on the biosafety and biosecurity and not really on the quality management system. So mostly SLIPTA will prepare you for the overall quality management system, but this checklist is just specific for biosafety and biosecurity. So this checklist so this checklist has a total of 18 sections. So all the sections are related to biosafety and biosecurity, and you can score a total of 259 points. And then for this checklist, it uses a class tiered type of grading, where if you score between 55, below 55, you have no rating. Between 55 and 64, you'll be classified into the class D. Between 65 and 74, you'll be in class C. Then class B is 75 to 84. Then class A, 85 to 94. Then class A plus, it means that you are above 95%. So the idea here is for facilities to go closer to the class A plus, because if you score a class A plus, it means that at least your laboratory or organization is one step closer to getting either certified in the biosafety and biosecurity certification. So this particular checklist prepares you for that particular certification. So we're going to look at this particular checklist when I show you on how to actually conduct an internal audit. So we're going to use the biosafety and biosecurity checklist that was prepared in Zambia. Then we have the strengthening laboratory biosafety practice checklist. So mostly this checklist was the first checklist that was released, and from this is where the Zambia biosafety and biosecurity checklist was derived from. So this was like the draft form of, or the reference checklist that was there before the Zambia National Biosafety and Biosecurity checklist came out. So this one mostly it has 13 sections, so it also covers most aspects of laboratory biosafety, and then it only covers one section of biosecurity with like 4 points. So it has a very small portion of biosecurity, and therefore that's why this one is not really recommended. You'd rather use the National Biosafety and Biosecurity checklist, because it has a broader aspect of biosecurity that is covered in terms of what is required in biosafety and biosecurity implementation when you are implementing a new program, or when you want to sustain a certain program. So the total number of points is 165, and then the staging or the grading for this one is from stage 0 to about stage 4. So now, how do you conduct an internal audit? So the best way to conduct an internal audit is by, first you need to create an internal audit schedule. So in this schedule, you are going to indicate the date or the time period where you are going to conduct the internal audit, and then also you indicate which sections of either the laboratory are going to audit on which particular day. So if you are doing the internal audit for the entire laboratory, you indicate to say you are doing the internal audit for the entire laboratory. Then also you need to indicate the type of method that you're going to use, as well as the materials, as well as the people, and anything that you may need to do the internal audit. So everything that you need for the internal audit to be successful is indicated in the internal audit schedule. Then on the actual day that you're supposed to do the audit, you get the materials that you need. For example, if you need the biosafety and biosecurity checklist, you get that particular checklist. and you use it to do the audit. So if you may need to orient some people that may not be familiar with how this particular checklist is supposed to be used, you need to include an orientation or training either in the schedule, so that you do an orientation before you actually do the audit. Then after the audit, you need to create an action plan for all the gaps that you identify through using the checklist that you'll be using. So the action plan will then guide you to close the gaps that you may identify. So we're going to look at a very quick action plan that you may use to actually implement the gaps that you identified in the internal audit. Then you need to generate an internal audit report. So from the checklist, you look at the gaps, you look at the successes, you look at some of the recommendations, then you combine them into a report that will now give a comprehensive picture of where the facility stands in terms of biosafety and biosecurity. Then, of course, you need to keep some records. So if you need to keep records, if you keep your records on a certain computer in your laboratory or organization, make sure you keep those records. Or if you keep the records on Google Drive, you can upload these records on Google Drive. So by records, I mean your checklist that you used, also the action plan that came up after the audit was done, as well as the report that you generated after the internal audit. So these are records that you are supposed to keep somewhere, so that they may be used as references and as evidence to say you actually did the audit. So inspection tools. So inspection tools can come in various ways or methods. So you may have daily inspection tools, you may have weekly inspection tools, as well as monthly checklists that you may be using. So depending on what you see fit, you may want to maybe start with daily inspections, then maybe you go to weekly inspections and monthly inspections if you find that the performance is improving as you are doing the inspections. Or you may stick to weekly inspections and continuously do the weekly inspections, which you will then compile by the end of the month into a monthly inspection checklist. So we're going to look at one tool that you can use for you to actually do your inspection, as well as a log which you can use to monitor how you are performing for this particular, or for each and every inspection that you do, either on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. So how do you do inspections? So for inspections, mostly all you need to do is schedule the inspections on your biosafety and biosecurity plan. So here, this is where you plan for maybe the entire year. So you need to include the inspection dates on this particular plan. Then after that, you need to conduct now the inspection using the checklist. So if you do not have the checklist in place, you need to create the checklist, and then after that, you orient people on how to use the checklist if you need other people to actually conduct the inspections. Then after that, you conduct the inspections, that is on a daily basis, if your checklist is a daily inspection checklist, or weekly basis if it's a weekly inspection checklist, or a monthly basis if it's a monthly inspection checklist. Then after you do your inspections, you may need to do some form of basic reporting, so you can generate a weekly or a monthly inspection report. Then, of course, record keeping. So you need to keep the records that will be generated from this particular activity. So from your biosafety and biosecurity plan, you need to put it, or you need to have some records of that. Then after you do the inspections, you need to keep some records of the checklists. Then if you create a report, you also need to have records of the report that may be used as reference or as evidence to show that you're actually conducting routine inspections in the laboratory. Yeah, so I've already spoken to you, including the dates of the inspection on biosafety and biosecurity plan. So we'll then go and demonstrate how you can do an audit and how you can generate an action plan from the audit. But then if there's any questions so far, you can leave the questions or the clarifications in the comment.